All right, guys. If you haven't seen this, it's a pretty big deal. I really wish more people would get into this. I'd like to start covering more Hong Kong stuff and this this type of thing. This is coming out of Iran, and a lot of people these days see Iran as a bad place, an enemy. It's just the propaganda that's been put out there over these years. And to be honest, it is. It's one of the number one supporters of terrorists in the world outside of Saudi Arabia, I guess. They support Hezbollah, places like that. It kind of depends on what you see as a terrorist, I guess. Obviously, Hezbollah is, but I mean, if you the problem is when you say terrorists, there's like four different terrorist organizations, and they're all different. So it's like there's a Shia and there's a Shiite, and then there's, that. So Iran is just another shade of Saudi Arabia doing a different kind of terrorist organization. But back in the day, 1979 is when the Iranian Revolution happened. Before that, they were good allies of the United States, longtime friends. The Persian people in general, very close to United States citizens. They're a lot like us, and they were, by all reporting, it was a good place to live at the time. It was one of the few places in the Middle East that was expanding and rapidly growing, probably a lot like Dubai is these days. Obviously Dubai has a very Islamic tinge to it, and it's still not. I wouldn't call it a freedom-loving place, but Iran was on its way, and then obviously the Iranian Revolution happened. It was backed by a lot of obviously communist organizations, leftists in general. I say leftists in the sense of people in the Middle East, not American leftists. That's why I hate those terms like people on the right or left. It's not really the same people. Obviously, probably Russia had something to do with it. Obviously, this is all speculation. I'm going to use a bunch of general terms, and everybody will. Everybody in Wikipedia and every documentary you listen to, it's going to list a bunch of random people. But basically, there was an Islamic uprising at the time, and it's come to what it is today. Unfortunately, for Iran, there's a large population of people who are not Muslim and who are not okay with basically a caliphate that is keeping the country in the 1980s still, and a country that should be prosperous with a high population, one of the strongest militaries in that region. It should be ahead of everybody. It should be well ahead of Iraq at this point and well ahead of Turkey at this point. But it's kind of handicapped itself. It's a nuclear power, or it's not. It's not a nuclear power. Let's forget about that. I didn't say that. They definitely didn't find any nuclear power. No bombs there. God forbid. Anyway, by all accounts, if you talk to anybody online, and obviously you can say they're lying, I guess. If you talk to anybody from Iran, I've met people personally who have moved from there. I've met people online who've talked about it. There are a ton of people who are just waiting. They're saying that a lot of these old types, I guess you can call them the baby boomers of their generation, the hardline Islamic people they're falling away, and the youth they're clamoring to come out. It's like it's like they, I don't know how to describe it. It's like if in America, just picture that everybody who was a baby boomer was obviously, they were much more religious as before. Imagine that, but tenfold. The youth of Iran are the same way, because unlike China, they have an open internet. They can not only share thoughts with each other, but they could see thoughts from around the world, or they could up until recently. Internet was just hard to come by at times, and it was slow and expensive. So, but it was still out there. Some people get these notions that countries like this under dictatorships and crazy Islamic countries and Russia and stuff like that are always going to have shut off internet, but it's not the case. Not everybody's China. Not everybody can afford to do that. Not everybody can crack down and close off the internet everywhere, and Iran is certainly one of those places that can't afford to do that. They got bass boats and defending their defending the sea around Iran, and that's the best they got. So, anyway, long story short, to get to this article, there's an uprising going on right now. If you haven't noticed, I don't have a picture of the graph right now, but it's all over the internet. There was basically the internet went down for about 10 days in Iran. They did the best they could to shut it off completely. There are mass protests everywhere. I think something like 200 people have already died. The number's probably climbing. This isn't like Hong Kong. This isn't news media everywhere. This is a shut off place in Iran where nobody's going, so it's harder to see this kind of stuff. And they shut off the internet for the best they could to get around this. Obviously, some people can get around it, but there's a huge internet blackout. Like there's a article right here. After internet blackout, Iranians take stock. You follow up on these articles, but I'm just trying to get the word out on this kind of thing right now. Iranian security agents arrested at least 8 people linked to the CIA during last week's deadly unrest over petrol prices increases. The official news agency IRNA reported on Wednesday. This is by Al Jazeera. These elements had received CIA funding, training in various countries under the cover of becoming citizen journalists. It quoted the intelligence ministries as saying 6 were arrested while attending the riots and carrying out CIA orders, and 2 others while trying to send information abroad. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, God, I can't say that, in his strongest remarks since the unrest peak, describes 2 weeks of violence as the work of very dangerous conspiracy. The people followed a deep, vast, and very dangerous conspiracy on which a lot of money was spent for the destruction, viciousness, and killing of people, Khamenei said. The Iranian leader was speaking at a gathering of Basiji, a militia local to the Islamic Republic's establishment. The Revolutionary Guard's all-volunteer Basij force helped significantly to put down the demonstrations. The death toll is unknown. It believes at least 143 people were killed, something Iran disputes without offering any evidence to support its claims. They say New York-based Human Rights Human Rights Watch on Wednesday accused the Iranian authorities of deliberately covering up to extend the crackdown, and HRW called on the authorities to immediately announce the number of deaths, arrests, and detentions and permit an independent inquiry into the alleged abuses. But essentially, that's it. There have been sanctions going on for a while. Obviously, before Trump became president, the United States was already putting the pressure and the clamps on Iran, and it was working. And then towards the end of his presidency, Obama loosened those after they let some people in, and then they didn't, to check for nuclear stuff, and that, you know the whole back and forth on that. And then after President came in, he imposed a blockade, as it says here. He imposed a blockade, the aftermath of unilaterally withdrawing the U.S. from Tehran's landmark nuclear deal with world powers, and obviously that's been working on their prices, particularly on gas for a while. Daily petrol consumption has fallen about 200 million liters, 5.2 million gallons a day since the prices were increased. Doesn't say what the prices have gone up to. Washington policy of imposing maximum pressure has hammered Iran's oil-reliant economy, which has been struggling to deal with the rising inflation, growing unemployment, and slumping real currency, and state corruption. Obviously, there have been problems before. The Iranians' economy is almost essentially all oil at this point. Obviously, they do other stuff, but it is their main their main export, particularly to places like Russia. One of the few places that still buy from them, because Russia obviously had sanctions from us, so they have to get it from somewhere. Russia was needing oil bad, so they went to Iran and was buying a lot from them. They were already kind of cozy with Iran. It's almost like they had a part with that whole revolution thing. But essentially that's the article. Please follow up. I will myself, but don't forget about this. They claim they had CIA agents there. Who knows? There may have been some. I wouldn't doubt it. We've been working on this for a while. This is Islamic Islamic dictatorship that needs to go away. I'm not saying I'm not for foreign wars. I don't want to go in there and topple this government, but we need to be doing everything we can, pressure economically, to help free these guys. I'm not saying, like I said, I don't want to go. I don't want another Iraq. I don't want another Pakistan. I don't want another Afghanistan, anything like that. But this is at least get the news out there, guys. At least talk about it. This isn't something that should go away. And these guys, they deserve. I say these guys, Iran, the people, not not Mr. Khamenei here, need to be held up or helped out as best we can. All right, you guys have a good night.